A question. Tell me a little about the Illuminati lodge system and what happens if you separate that from the families. How are royal families and lodges connected? Which came first and what was formed? What's their origin?
Of course, that's the story. What is created first are the royal families. They were the ones who first gained this knowledge. What happens?
How do they come to this knowledge?
Do they gain this knowledge through mediums? So they acted as channels. So you know that person who has the gift of telling you what they're told? Disembodied souls who died, or entities from other dimensions and so on. So those witches of the time, or channelers or whatever, started to deliver messages from beings who were asking for cooperation and said they would give them a lot of information in return so they could advance as a civilization. So thanks to that, they were given the knowledge of how to perform a ritual to channel the reptile, or at the very least, summon a demon, whether it was Baal or whoever. Because there are a lot of them, and sometimes they don't manifest physically, but you can hear them and they tell you things, you know? Well, that information was given to them so they could connect with them once they received that information to control the population, which was huge. From fear, as always, they made people go through a lot of torture and things like that to keep the population submissive and obedient. So then they started setting up the structure of the lodges. So the members of the royal families are the first ones to set up the lodges. Illuminati were the first to gain control and power well before compound interest banking. We're talking before ancient Egypt. We're talking before Babylon, probably in Atlantis and in Sumeria. No, sorry, in Sumeria, right? Atlantis, Lemuria, then Babylon, Sumeria, Egypt, and so on. Atlantis was located where the Atlantic Ocean is, which is why divers find remnants of civilizations there. Before the Great Flood, water levels were lower, so those civilizations, including Atlantis, were on land. The Atlantic Ocean is named for Atlantis because when the flood came, those cities were submerged and people moved elsewhere. And that's how it is. But that's where Atlantis and Lemuria are.
It existed 100%, yes.
Of course. What evidence?
Is there of that?
The cities that are all submerged?
There are sunken cities.
Of course, there are a lot of glass structures with pyramids and everything under the water and at great depths. So all those remains of civilizations, even huge stone constructions and carvings and everything, were submerged when the flood happened, and the flood appears in all civilizations. Uncle?
That's true, you know?
That had to be true. I have no idea what it was, how the gates of heaven opened or what it was. But everyone agrees the sea level rose dramatically. And we see it in the evidence when we see that there are sunken cities and nobody is going to build underwater, because that's absurd, you know?
Is it impossible? So,
and when you stop to look at history as well, you realize that if they call it the Atlantic Ocean, why is that? Really? Because that's where the Atlanteans were. That's where Atlantis was. Lemuria is its counterpart near Japan. The Japanese islands are the highest points of Lemuria, which is now completely submerged. Those are the two great civilizations that began. That's when communication began with beings from other dimensions who shared knowledge and started to preserve it. These royal families. They taught them with the purest lineage about what is known as endogamy in order to maintain pure genetic lineages. Alright, so what happens next? Royal families, like the military and other institutions, need a support structure. So they start setting up lodges. Each royal family sets up its own lodge. The Japanese royal families, the English royal families, the royal families. You understand? They all know how to channel the reptiles, the world's key royal families. And then they start making lower level lodges, and they start making lodges like the ones there are now. You know, like if one is Skull and Bones, if one is the Order of Malta, if one is the Knights of the Sacred, and what? You know, the Templars? There are thousands of lodges. Some resemble military orders, others are like the Order of the Bath, and others differ, you know? But they're lodges, they're lodge structures, people who come together as a group to share knowledge, and they're called lodges. Illuminati, because Illuminati means enlightened, meaning that you can see. If you're in a dark room, you can't see. But if you turn on a light, you can see. So, when you are enlightened, what you can do is see. Then you understand nature, reality. When we say Illuminati lodges, it doesn't mean we're referring to the one on the dollar bill, which is the Bavarian Illuminati. It's like if we said Real Madrid Football Club, they're not all football clubs. It's the one from Real Madrid Football Club. But they add football club just to add it, but they're all football clubs. The Illuminati lodges are similar. They include the Masons, the Order of Malta, and similar groups. And actually, now that you mention this, if you remember the society called Skull and Bones, which John Kerry and Bush belonged to, I don't know if you remember. Well, we have Tim Russert, the journalist who dared to ask them. Exactly, brother. Right? I was just watching that. He asks them, how can you be rivals if you've both belonged to Skull and Bones since youth? Neither denied it. Those videos are legendary, and they were the ones that helped me wake up at first to realize that the lodges were real. When I saw Bush hesitating, saying, well, and John Kerry saying that, well, they're so secret that we can't talk about them. Well, there you have the lodge structure, and then, depending on the level of the lodges, you have a certain knowledge of reality. Here we had a very famous case with a politician from our country who built an airport without airplanes. We won't say any more. I have witnesses who were there at that ritual he performed in which, well, a gypsy child was killed. They take a child from the street, and you already know what happens. The ritual isn't high level since those at the top already have children. They aren't taken from the street. Lodge members usually supply them. Your own children? Yes. If you're wondering, yes, your own children, because that's what really shows your commitment to the lodge until the end. In fact, we have an important video. I showed it in one of my videos about Tupac, in which we see the person who was president of the United States. Not the current one, but the one just before. When he was with Obama, who decorated him and everything. At a press conference, he approached and touched the girls in front of cameras, even while their parents were there. Biden, exactly, Biden. Well, I have the video, you can hear the audio, and I translated it many years ago before he became president, in which he whispers in the 13-year-old girl's ear that she makes him very hot and that if she wants, he'll give her a movie. Parents? They laugh while listening to this, which is recorded by the cameras. That's when, if you don't know anything about the lodges, you say, damn. How does a father hear them say that to his daughter and not hit them? A slap right there in front of everyone, or even a shot. Why? Because they're from the lodge. And one of the things that proves you're going to stay with the lodge until the end is giving up your children, so that the highest ranking members of the lodge can do whatever they want. Even kill them, that too. Sometimes they're given up for sacrifice. That's why I'm saying what happened with the politician from our country was low. Because they took a gypsy boy from here in Spain, took him to a farmhouse, and placed all the children around in the shape of 2 stars. Is this Satanist symbolism like that? And they forced the children to watch as he shot and killed the gypsy boy right in the center. To do what? Lower the vibration. Both with the fear of the children watching one of their classmates being killed and not being able to do anything. That low vibration spreads through the ley lines, making us more submissive. And that we don't have the courage that you often have to really expose what's going on, even though you're going to get a lot of criticism for being so outspoken, That's the lodge system. And there are those who sacrifice humans, and even those who sacrifice humans to drink their blood, which is what we talked about with Adrenochrome. So that's a drug. Then you add a beep without fail, and it's a drug. So they don't drink it to rejuvenate? Some people drink human blood for a high. Just the adrenaline alone. I have a friend who really loved getting high, especially with stimulants and stuff, mostly with cocaine. And he says that when he tried adrenaline, I saw it because a friend of mine who worked at a hospital gave it to him, and he injected it here in his leg. Adrenaline, just like that, just like that. It was just 10 minutes for me, but I saw him acting wild. And he said he'd never been like that before. The adrenaline hits, it's crazy, so you make the victim suffer. With all that fear, a lot of adrenaline is added. You drink the blood and it hits you, like snorting 5 grams of coke or something. It's insane. And besides that, adrenaline oxidizes into adrenochrome when it comes into contact with air. And then what that does is work like a psychedelic. It's like if you took mushrooms with psilocybin or mescaline from cacti. It elevates your consciousness, letting you communicate with entities from other dimensions and frequency paradigms beyond Earth. And then that's when they started having communications with them, and they give them different lessons on how they can control us. Some people, like that Spanish politician, sacrifice humans just to lower our vibration. They don't drink blood or anything like that. They just know the population is more submissive. If you celebrate those evil acts and lower the vibration, law, good. Then there are mid to high level rituals where victims are sacrificed and their blood is consumed. Because it's a very powerful drug that takes you to higher states of consciousness to connect and communicate with beings from other dimensions. And then there are the highest level rituals of the Satanist, which are the ones that channel the reptilians from the fourth dimension. The human not only drinks the blood with adrenaline and adrenochrome, but also, besides, they reach a state of ecstasy of such a low vibration that they temporarily give up their body for about 10 or 20 minutes to the reptile so it can eat the human without its dimension. They feed on humans and in return share greater knowledge about how things or reality work. So we have all those ranks of the reptiles which involve human sacrifices, and then there are all the lodges that, since they sacrifice animals, those are the crappiest rituals. Even those that are lodges. Dude, like the Lodge of Lugo, which had 3 people, man, which are offshoots of the lodges that give them permission. For example, the Grand Lodge of Spain issues numerous permits to small subsidiary lodges, you know? So there can be 5 here, 10 there, and they're basically like organizations of businessmen who help each other out. I sell toilet paper, you have hotels, so buy the toilet paper from me. And they're always helping each other to boost their economy. They have no idea about all the shady stuff they do, especially those from the higher lodges. So, it's a broad hierarchical lodge system, right? Exactly. And it's a pyramidal system, so only those at the very top know what they want to know. And the lodges are based on a need-to-know information system. Always. They only let you know what you need to contribute to the organization. They don't tell you anything about the rest.
That's very important. It's Enrique, because I know people who have been part of one